I can really recommend being a foster carer for Notts County Council. There's always someone walking the journey alongside you, whether that's other foster carers or social workers. It really helps to provide stability and consistency for children who really need it, and that's really rewarding as a foster carer.
Roger and I have been fostering for 35 years. We do deal with challenges, but to say we've been doing it for 35 years to me proves that it's not impossible. We learn an awful lot from these young people, and even now we're still learning.
As a foster family, we care, we want to make a difference, and we get so much fulfilment from fostering. The satisfaction of making a difference is something that money can't buy. Just seeing the smiles on the children's faces and helping them reach their potential is wonderful.
We work as family workers within the fostering service for Nottinghamshire County Council.
I really enjoy my work. I really enjoy meeting lots of different foster carers.
You know, we get to know the families, we get to know the kids, and we care, basically. It's important as it is to them that the kids are getting the support that they need.
A lot of people said to me they would like to be a foster carer, but there's something stopping them. I had that as well. And we decided just to jump in and do it and see what happened. And for us, it's been the best decision we've ever made.
It's been a fantastic decision, it really has, yes.
Once people start to become a foster carer and take that leap to do it, they'll understand how much it gives back, not just to the child, but how much it empowers you as well.
I'm Leon, I'm a care leaver, and I've been in care since I was 8. I've been with the same parents since, and they're amazing. Like, they are my foster parents, but I do class them as my parents, my mum and dad. All a child wants really from a family is to be supported, loved and cared for, and know they're there because they're wanted. From personal experience, I know the difference it's made for my life.
We always say that we foster as a whole family. It's not just us who are the carers, our children are involved in that. And even now, people express concern about the effect on our birth children of foster caring. I think we need to kind of get past that and dispel that myth, because actually the overall effect on our children, I think, is positive. They're learning new skills, they're gaining empathy, they're interacting with children from different backgrounds. For a long time we didn't make use of support care, and we wanted our child to settle into our placement and not feel pushed out, but it's actually been really helpful for us to start to have support care.
We've known Zoe for a number of years, and it's meant that we got to know her foster child. So for her it's been like coming for a sleepover rather than a feeling she's coming to another family. I got into fostering for Notts County Council, and it was something that I've always wanted to do, but working full time and my husband also working full time, we thought it's not really going to be something we can do now. But after looking at the website, we realised there was this wonderful thing called support care that we were able to offer. It might surprise you, but actually I'm under 30, I don't have any children of my own, and that doesn't stop you from being a foster carer.
I think some people don't go into foster care because they think it's going to be really costly to have another child living in their house, but actually the fostering allowance is generous enough to cover all the costs of having a child living with you.
We have a lot of fun on the weekends when we have foster children in. We get to go to parks, ice skating, children's events, trampolining parks like high jump.
We get access to the Max card, which is a discount card for foster carers and their children to access different local amenities. Also recently we went on holiday and we were able to use the Max card to get free access to some castles and historical places because it's a national initiative.
We chose to go with Notts County Council because of the support care that was offered and the training. And it's always local to Nottinghamshire. My parents are foster carers for an agency and they found it really difficult to get support care for their child.
My name's Lynn. I am now a support foster carer. We were mainstream carers, but given our ages, we felt that we couldn't commit to children for long term anymore. We just find it really rewarding, the relationships we build up with these young people, and we feel we're perhaps a bit like grandparents to them. With the children coming here for weekends, this enables their mainstream carers to have a break, and this makes things more secure perhaps for the children to continue there. I work with my supervising social worker to sort out the dates. She comes out to see us every month, and it's all very relaxed. I find Robin really easy to speak to. She listens to my concerns, and I value what she is saying to me in return.
The benefits of a supervising social worker are always having someone to contact. There is also emergency duty team that they can contact on a weekend and out of hours. I think the times that it gets difficult is when, you know, she's supported a child for a long time and then they're either moving on out of area or they're moving on because they've reached the age of 18, you know, and she has to say goodbye to that child, so that can be always emotionally draining. Generally, it's staying in touch so they know that you do care about them and you are concerned, you know, that the impact that something like that has had on them.
You do feel fully supported. It's like working in a team. We still even now go on training sessions. I almost look forward to those sessions because you meet other foster carers there and it's very interesting. I've always fostered with my husband, who's brilliant, and I feel personally I couldn't do it without him. He's super with the kids, and it's just something we continue to enjoy doing. A lot of our friends feel at the ages we are, we shouldn't be doing it, but it's a way of life for us now.
I'm Mark, I'm a foster carer dad in the family. I'm the fun dad, if you like. I've tried to be anyway, try to be.
And I'm Amy, a foster carer. So we have 4 children of our own and then we foster younger children into our family. Being a foster carer is a devastating privilege. It's devastating that children have to be in this situation, and yet what a privilege that we are able to help them.
Yeah.
When you foster as a family. I think it's very important that everybody in your house is involved. And even though we have 4 children of our own, we don't find that a challenge, we find that quite an easy thing to do. Daniel particularly, he's older and he sees more and he understands more because he's older, and he feels that it's given him an insight as to when he's older and he has his own children. Whenever a placement ends, we always ask them, do you want to do it again? Would you like another child? And it's always yes. And even though we've had the sadness maybe of a child leaving, and they are sad when a child leaves, the positive that we get out of it, they get to see, as we do, the happiness when a child leaves us, and that inspires them as well to want to do it again and again and again, as well as us.
When a child leaves, it's sad for us, but it's happy for them.
The biggest thing for us has been the support network, because if it wasn't for them, I don't think we would be able to carry on. I think it's a big thing to know that there's always someone there if you've ever got problems. And for our children, they really enjoy the events that we attend. We've been quite surprised at actually the amount of events there are.
Barbecues and picnics and
local supports
groups. And Foster's Got Talent. We've been to the Christmas do's and the Sons and Daughters events here today are fantastic for our children. They really enjoy it, and I think it's a lovely thing for them to do.
And it's very empowering for them to know that they're appreciated as a child in a foster family.
We are allocated to new foster carers so that we can give them support and advice before they get their new placement. So we might go out and give them some advice around therapeutic parenting and kind of build up their foster carer toolkit before they begin.
Yeah, and we've got an idea of obviously the child who's being placed with them, so that we can tell them some background about that particular child.
We find that children that have experienced trauma or have attachment needs are more responsive to therapeutic parenting than your average parenting. So that's very much what we encourage our foster carers to do.
Theraplay is obviously a form of therapeutic parenting. A lot of the foster children, their early life experiences of being quite sad, really. They haven't had any compliments. Nobody's ever said that they've got nice eyes. Nobody's said that the hair's nice. So that is something that we always start off to build their self-esteem.
Yeah, there's lots of nurturing activities, so tactile, skin to skin contact, eye contact. We'll offer nurture in positive ways, introduce it slowly, so we might do touch with a feather, maybe feather face painting.
One of the main purposes of therapy is for them to achieve, so we always want them.
Chairman, you're now live.
Okay, thank you very much. If I can welcome you all to this meeting, which is being held remotely with the majority of members joining the meeting from their home, as well as myself, Philip Owen, who is the chairman of the committee. The others that members that are present this morning are Councillor Sue Saddington and Councillor Tracy Taylor, who are both vice chairman of the committee. We also have Councillor Richard Butler, Councillor Samantha Deakin, Councillor John Handley, Councillor Errol Henry, Councillor Paul Henshaw, Councillor Roger Jackson, Councillor John Peck, and Councillor Liz Plant. In attendance, we have officers Colin Pettigrew, who is the Corporate Director for Children and Young People's Services. We have the Service Director for Learning and Skills, Marion Clay. We have the Service Director for Youth, Families and Social Work, Steve Edwards, and the Service Director for Commissioning and Resources, Lawrence Jones. This is apparently the 6th virtual meeting that we've held of this committee, and it is being held in line with the requirements of the Coronavirus Act 2020. Again, I ask you to please bear with us if we experience any technical issues. I was saying just prior to the meeting that things seem to have gone reasonably well in this committee, but there's always a first time. So if we do lose any members from the call, then they will be assisted by IT, and I will pause the meeting for a short time in order to allow them to rejoin. So I think that's dealt with all that side of things. So let's get on with the main body of the meeting. And the first item on the agenda are the minutes of the last meeting held on the 30th of November. Unless there are any objections to me to those minutes, then we approve them. No formal vote is required. And I can't see anybody raising a hand to say that they are objecting, so I'm taking it that those are acceptable. If we can move to item number 2, apologies for absence. I don't know that there are any. Mr. Gately.
Chairman, thank you. There are no apologies. We have a change of membership, as you will see. Councillor Butler substitutes for Councillor Elliott at this meeting.
That's right. Thank you very much. Welcome yet again, Councillor Butler. You're really more or less a full-time member of this committee. You obviously enjoy it so much, and I can understand the reasons why.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I probably no need to comment further.
No, that's right. Please don't. Okay, next item is item number 3. Any declarations of interest by members and officers, disclosable pecuniary interest, private interest, both pecuniary and non-pecuniary. No items to declare. Thank you very much. Okay, so if we can move to what is really the first substantive item on the agenda, which is the Adoption East Midlands Regional Adoption Agency update, April to September 2020. You have the report set out in front of you, and on page 14 of 166, you have the 2 recommendations, which I am happy to move.
Second those, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Taylor. And are there any comments or questions on that? Councillor Plant, you've indicated.
Oh, yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, obviously we welcome the report. It is still early days. I think it's only the second year for the Adoption East Midlands to be up and running, but obviously it seems to be going very well. And it does make so much more sense in all ways, really, for local authorities to work together rather than to be in competition. But really, I just want to commend those adoptive families who've actually adopted during this extremely difficult time, as it says in the report. I mean, I never think that adoption is an easy thing to do and an easy thing to make that decision, but it must be exceptionally difficult in these COVID times because adopters will not have the sort of extended family support that they would normally have. And also, obviously, there won't be the same face-to-face support from the local authorities. So just to say, to well done. And obviously, also wanted to say in terms of paragraph 17, I was pleased to see that they're going to look further in terms of developing their diversity and its anti-racist stance, and also to improve recruitment and support for the more diverse range of adopters which are needed for some children who, I can't say that word, statistically, seem to wait longer to find their adoptive parents. So that's really good news as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Plant. Any other comments from members? Councillor Peck.
Yes, I endorse the comments of Councillor Plant. Officers and particularly Steve Edwards will know that the Regional Adoption Agency didn't really get off to the most auspicious of starts. We had some very fraught discussions in my time with the chairman of CYP committees across the region, but eventually we did come up with a solution, and I'm pleased that Nottinghamshire became the host authority. And from reading the report, it appears that despite not the easiest of starts, I think this has worked out rather well. So that's pleasing to see. So yes, we're happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Peck. Any officer comment in the absence of any member comment? Any officer? Mr. Pettigrew.
Thank you, Chair. And Councillor Peck is correct. There was a number of false starts on a whole regional basis. This programme really only made progress when we looked at it on a sub-regional basis. And I would want to credit Steve Edwards and Sheila Mitchell with the leadership that they've shown on behalf of not just the County Council, but the 4 local authorities that have been involved, to the good of not only children who are awaiting adoption, but for our adopters too.
Good, thank you for that. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that this has been successful, and Councillor Peck, you are quite right. It was difficult right at the very beginning because let's say there were some upper tier authorities that wanted to in a way plough their own furrow rather than cooperate, and that's why we ended up with it being a D2N2 collaboration, which is proving to be very successful. I would have hoped that we might have been able to have worked more closely with Lincolnshire and Leicestershire, but they seem to have formed now their own particular little caucus. I do think there is some benefits for it being a larger unit, and that was the driver behind the government's insistence, if you recall, that we enter into these sort of arrangements. But it has been a success up to now, and I think there's all credit due, as has been said already, to the hard work that's been put in by the members of staff. So without further ado, if we can move to the vote, all those in favour can show. I don't think there's anyone against. Thank you very much. That is now carried. If we can move to item number 5, which is the development of the fostering services. Again, you've got the report set out in front of you, and on page 25 there are 5 recommendations which I am happy to move.
Happy to second those, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Councillor Plant.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the Labour Group obviously fully supports these recommendations to grow and develop our fostering service. There is no doubt that a supportive foster family is without a doubt probably the best the best solution for the majority of our looked after children. Not all, but for the vast majority. And I fully support the concept behind this decision of an invest to save approach, a decision that was ratified by the Newton consultation. Obviously, recruiting and retaining more of our own foster carers will reduce the very expensive reliance we have on independent foster carers, or even more expensive external places in our residential care homes. But I really do welcome the recommendations to actually do this. But I'm also look forward to this not novel concept, actually, of invest to save, perhaps being extended across other areas of our children's services. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Plant. Any further comments on this? Any officer comment? No? Okay, well, yeah, thank you for your comments, Councillor Plant. It's interesting to note that so far we've been able to deliver a net increase in foster carers of this year. We've actually recruited 36 new foster carers, but we've lost 24. Now, what we have to bear in mind is that I think the profile, the age profile of many of our foster carers is at the upper end, so we are going to be losing a considerable number, but you can all do the arithmetic of a net gain of 12. And that's not only good for the children who are fostered, but financially, even those what you might consider to be relatively small numbers of children makes a significant impact on the council's budget. And in the medium-term financial strategy, the project for 2021 to 2022-3, there's an effect of 283,000 and 357,000 respectively. It's often difficult to sell the idea of invest to save because you know precisely how much you're going to spend or invest, but you can never guarantee that you're going to save. But I think these figures show how right we were to adopt that approach. And as I say, it's good for the young people and it's good for the council finances. So without further ado, I'm happy to put the recommendations to the vote. Can I have a show of hands, all those in favour? Councillor Henshaw, are you supporting or not?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. That is carried. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much. If we can move on to the next agenda item, which is the Contact Service Annual Report. Again, you have the report and details of the service provided by the Contact Service. We have one recommendation on page 31, which I am happy to move.
Second that, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do we have any comments or questions on that report? No, in which case I'm happy to put it to the vote. All those in favour, would you please show? Thank you. That is carried. Lovely. If we can move then to the next item on the agenda, which is the COVID Winter Grant Scheme, which again is set out in front of you, and there is one recommendation on page 36, which again I am happy to move.
I'm happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Councillor Plant. You're muted, Councillor Plant.
There? Yeah. Yeah, this is the second time this report has come to committee. And in fairness, there has been really nothing but chaos and confusion and U-turns as regards the government's response to free school meals provision in the holidays during this pandemic. And at every turn, it seems that the government has been shamed into doing the right thing rather than actually wanting to do the right thing. And in terms of this grant, I suppose what we in the Labour group would like to know, first of all, was this money, and we've taken over £1 million to support free school meals, presumably in the Christmas holidays and also in the forthcoming February half term. Has this money been specifically ring-fenced by the government as part of this grant to pay for free school meals? Or has the administration made that decision to spend part of this money, which is to support families in terms of food poverty and heating poverty and other issues? Has the administration taken the decision to use it to pay for the free school meals in the Christmas and the forthcoming half-term holiday? That was the first thing we'd like to know. The other thing is, in terms of, has there been clarity in terms of how the scheme has been publicised, both to head teachers, schools, and also to those families who will be eligible? Because there doesn't seem to be a great deal of clarity yet again out there. And also I'd like to know, are those children and families who have no recourse to public funds, I'm thinking particularly of our unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, eligible for some of this funding? Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions from members? Mr. Pettigrew, do you want to comment at this point?
Chair, if I may, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Specific answer to Councillor Plant's question was it ring fenced? No, it wasn't. Yeah, there was it was authoritative, it was permissive, Councillor Plant, if you like, within the grant. The grant was prescriptive. Yeah, it's a funny grant in some ways it was very prescriptive, i.e. No less than 80% of the entire grant should be spent on food and families with children. There was a 20% ceiling for other families, so families that maybe didn't have children of school age, or other families experiencing food, some challenges around food, and 20% could have been spent on things other than food, things like utilities, fuel, etc. The detail of that I'll leave Irene or Lawrence to go into. But what I would say, those local authorities that made a decision not to use it in the way that this committee decided to use it, are now finding some difficulty around what their plans are for February half term, where in the media there's quite a growing view that there will be no free school meals for children during February half term, when in fact in Nottinghamshire that's already sorted in terms of the commitment that this committee made. I think I'm right. It was this committee rather than policy that made a decision that we would invest the grant in the way that we've done.
Thank you. Irene or Lawrence, do you want to make any comment before I wind up?
Yes, I can certainly do that, Chair. Thank you.
Certainly, thank you.
Yes, Colin's absolutely right in terms of the grant, prescriptive in some areas and quite open in others, and certainly the majority of local authorities have spent the biggest chunk of the grant on children and families and those getting free school meals over Christmas and February half term. So that's certainly something that we're doing well on. Schools were told about this in December. Funding was passported to schools to purchase vouchers or food packages, whatever they felt best. The majority did go for vouchers, building on the schemes that they had in October half term as well. In terms of publicising this scheme to others, now it's a difficult one in terms of the COVID winter grant scheme because we're not quite sure what the demand is going to be, and the demand could be absolutely huge. So from this month, we are now issuing vouchers to households with children who meet any of those criteria, including no recourse to public funds. So absolutely, they are eligible to access the scheme. So we're not publicising it yet massively to the public, but we will be doing that if we're seeing that there isn't demand on our council services issuing vouchers. So in terms of getting those vouchers out, they will be referrals into our children's centre service and our family service for school age. Those teams will then issue vouchers, but also social care colleagues and other teams within the council will also be able to issue vouchers to our young people. So that will include, for example, care leavers. It will include young people with an education healthcare plan who meet the criteria. So many of those are still eligible for free school meals. And early years settings as well was the new one that we hadn't quite nailed at the first meeting. But the difference is now is that we've done a lot more work, a lot more consultation with our partners to come up with the different breakdown that we're currently proposing in the paper. But so far, we are getting people coming through, and we will monitor the demand as we go.
Thank you, Irene. Colin, did you want to come back? You've got your hand up.
If I may, Chair,
yeah.
And it's just to build on Irene's point. Irene is painfully aware that I've given her a critical success factor that this grant is spent. Yeah. That the grant doesn't go back to the DWP. Yeah, the way that the grant is funded is that it's paid in 3 parts and it's paid retrospectively. Yeah, to the council, and therefore we will only get that third amount. Yeah, if we're able to demonstrate during April. Yeah, that we spent that during February and March. I think those are the right dates, Irene.
Yeah, that's correct.
But it is a time-limited grant for the period of beginning of December to the end of March, in a period of 17 weeks. Yeah, and I think, again, that my colleagues, particularly the leadership of Irene, should take great credit. Yeah, that 24,000 children on free school meals, yeah, were given vouchers over Christmas. Yeah, and will do the same over February half term, which will put 360,000 meals in children's mouths across Nottinghamshire.
Thank you very much for that comment, officers. If I may wind up, just to answer Councillor Plant directly on the political aspect of it, I don't accept, as you would expect me to, that there has been chaos and U-turns. The government have given grants to local authorities and have asked us to sort it out, which we have been happy to do so. When we got money available at October half term, I accept we were late in making the decision because we were waiting, and I explained this at the time, we were waiting for the details of the money to come through. Our half term started a week earlier than most of the rest of the country, and the decision for us then was a little late. But in consultation with the leader of the council, it was agreed that we would provide those free school meals. And subsequently, we made the commitment, I made the commitment that we would provide them over Christmas and that we would provide them over February half term. Now, my responsibility is for Nottinghamshire. There has been no U-turn. I don't think you'd want me to make a U-turn on it. There has been no chaos. There has been no lack of clarity. I made that statement and we stuck to it at Christmas. And in total, there were 26,000 children and young people who were provided with supermarket vouchers or food parcels over the Christmas period. So that was perfectly clear. The government have given us this money and we are continuing to use it as appropriate. I will make the point and re-emphasize the point that funded 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds eligible for the early years pupil premium and 16 to 18-year-olds in FE colleges are now included in the allocation for free school meals. Young people aged 19 to 25 in FE colleges and those with an EHC plan who fit the criteria have been included in the allocation for households. Care leavers aged 19 to 24 are included. The Nottingham Energy Partnership has been commissioned to provide financial support to all eligible households to help with energy and water bills, and a contingency budget has been created to help pay for increased demands in relation to eligibility for free school meal and funded early years entitlements to cover February half term. And as far as the Nottingham Energy Partnership is concerned, in the first 10 days of the Energy Partnership offering the scheme, they received over 80 appropriate referrals of households needing assistance with energy or water bills. I think we have done incredibly well in Nottinghamshire, and it's a huge credit to officers in this authority. The administration has taken appropriate decisions in a clear and unambiguous way, and we will continue to do so. And with those few comments, I would put the recommendations to the vote. All those in favour.
Councillor Owen, could I just make a point of clarification?
Yes.
I don't think, I don't really want to speak on Councillor Plant's behalf, but listening to what Councillor Plant was saying, I don't think she was accusing you of chaos and making U-turns. I think her comments were directed to your government making U-turns and in chaos over this and other aspects, and I don't think that is deniable.
I'm sure, Councillor Peck, that they would deny it, but I'm not a government spokesman. I'm a county council spokesman, and I'm speaking on behalf of the county council. And I'm pleased to note that you think we've done a pretty good job as an administration of the county council. So thank you very much for that. It's much appreciated to note support from the opposition for what we are doing in such an effective way. So thank you, Councillor.
If you want to take it that way.
Well, I didn't think it would be intended in any other way from you, Councillor Peck. I really didn't. So with those few comments, can we move to the vote, please? All those in favour of the recommendations, would you please show? Thank you very much. That is carried. Could we move on then, please, to item number 8, which is progress on the improving the effectiveness and efficiency of the Children's Services Plan. You have the report in front of you with the appendix on the yellow pages, and we have 2 recommendations that are set out on page 41, which I am happy to move.
I'm happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Councillor Plant.
Muted.
You're muted, Councillor Plant. That's a very overused phrase, I think, in these past few months, but you were muted.
That's very boring. Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, the Labour Group will be abstaining on this agenda item. We disagree with the statement in paragraph 8 that just because 3 posts have not yet been filled for some time, that they can be identified as surplus to need. And again, as the Newton consultant stated, again, going back to the concept of invest to save, and that concept applies equally to the family service, where early intervention support could prevent family problems escalating and requiring more expensive support at a later date, and even actually in terms of a child being taken into care or not being taken into care. So we don't agree with that. And I have a couple of questions on the effectiveness and efficiency plan, if I can find the right page. One is the, oh God, there's some numbers on these, but I'll just say pilot for the Safer Families for Children model, which is to be...
Are you just sorry to interrupt, are you referring to the yellow pages now?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
They are numbered, the very left-hand side, they are numbered.
1.11.
Right, thank you.
Which is a pilot that's going to be taking place in Ashfield. And I don't expect actually Steve to sort of give an explanation about that, but I would like just to have a little bit more information on that, just because I'm obviously really interested in it. And my question that I can't not ask is on 1.12, it's just that I noticed decreasing teacher pension enhancements by £84,000 due to increased mortality. And as there are 3 teachers on this screen now who are still very much alive and kicking, I sort of wondered what that was referring to. Thank you.
I wasn't anticipating either you or Councillor Peck dying to help the budget, but you know, you know, it's a fact of life, or more to the point, a fact of death, that unfortunately teachers do die, and those that secured, myself not included, those that secured enhancements will be dying off, and as they die off, those enhancements fall out of the system. So it's at the time, if I remember correctly, it was the county council that had to fund those enhancements. And so as those teachers who got the enhancements die, then it's a saving on the county council budget. So I better be very careful on what I say about this, otherwise it may be used against me in the future. But I hope that's an explanation on that one, Councillor Plant. I'm not putting any duty or any burden upon either you or Councillor Peck. As far as your other questions are concerned, Steve, are you going to answer this, or Colin?
Be myself, Councillor Owen.
Lawrence, thank you.
Okay, so if I just pick up the issue of the posts first, they are unit leaders posts in the family service, so are largely supervisory posts. And because of that, the absence of them has not caused any issue in the delivery of frontline services. So on that basis, when we've looked at the efficient use of the budget, we've identified that these posts can be lost without any impact on the front line. So that's why these 3 have been particularly identified in this case. In terms of the pilot of the Safer Families for Children, that's a charity that we've been looking at for a number of years. There was a government pilot some years back in relation to what they were doing. We had some misgivings the way it was set up initially, so we paused while we let other local authorities explore the benefits of it. It's been significantly revised over recent years as they've gained more experience, and we have now decided to undertake a limited pilot of it to see what the effects are. The charity links up volunteers from faith sectors with families, and they deliver community support to those families, and occasionally for in low risk cases they deliver some overnight care as well for short periods, for example where a parent is in hospital and there's no one to care for the children. We are now happy that all the safeguarding arrangements around that are adequate enough for us to pilot it. As I say, we weren't convinced the first time round, but we are much happier now, having had a series of meetings with that provider. So we'll take note of the outcomes and come back perhaps for to report on that and an extension of it at some later date. And just with reference to the teachers' pension enhancements, it's a routine matter that we forecast forward the number of unfortunate deaths of teachers, so the number that will drop out of the scheme. In this case, the forecast was lower than the actual number of deaths, so a lot of the cost has fallen out, and we continue to review that on a year by year basis. It is an aging population, so it's a scheme that doesn't any longer exist, so it is an aging out population, so it will change year on year, and we'll continue to revise and put that information into the budgets.
Oh dear, what's happened? Oh, have I gone off? Are we still on?
Can I ask officers, just in the absence of Councillor Owen's picture and voice, can I just ask officers to check whether we've lost connection with Councillor Owen, please?
We will do, Councillor Taylor. Yeah, bear with me a moment, please.
If it's any help, mine cut off a few minutes ago as well for about 30 seconds, but
if I look at my participants list, he does seem to be absent from the meeting at the moment. So if colleagues are happy with this, I suggest that we pause the meeting whilst we make efforts to bring Councillor Owen back in.
Councillor Taylor, my colleagues who are behind the scenes are aware that Councillor Owen's just dropped out, so they're making efforts to get him back.
Yeah. But rather than pick up the chair in his absence, we'll have some efforts to do that first. Martin, thank you.
we're running now, we'd delayed on that for a number of years when the initial government pilot had been issued because of some concerns around the way it operated, but it's changed significantly over time, and we're now much happier to the point where we're happy to run that limited pilot, and we'll report back at some point on the outcomes of that and whether we think it's a scheme that should be extended. And I just briefly confirmed your point, Councillor Owen, around the teachers' pension enhancements and the fact that the forecast that we make as routine had been altered because of new information, and we'll continue to do that on an annual basis.
Thank you very much. You've heard the answers. Councillor Peck, are your group still wanting to abstain? Because if so, I'll ask. Okay, Mr. Gately, can you do an actual roll call? Because I think we need to be absolutely certain. So the recommendations have been moved and seconded. So I'm looking for those in favour. So if you do an actual roll call on this one, please.
So, Chairman, this is the vote then on item 8. So, Councillor Owen, for, against, or abstaining?
Yeah. I'm for, yes.
Councillor Taylor?
I'm for.
Councillor Saddington?
I'm for.
Councillor Deakin?
Abstain.
Councillor Butler?
For.
Councillor Handley?
For.
Councillor Henry?
Abstain.
Councillor Henshaw?
Abstaining.
Councillor Jackson?
For.
Councillor Peck?
Abstain.
Councillor Plant? Councillor Plant? Muted.
Muted again. Abstain.
So I'll just top those up then. So, Chairman, with 6, 4 and 5 abstentions, obviously that's carried.
Thank you very much. So if we can move on to the next item, which is item number 9, the Special Educational Needs and Disabilities Strategic Action Plan and the Integrated SEND Commissioning Strategy, which is the report is set out, and on page 56 you have one recommendation which I move.
I'll second it, Chairman.
Thank you very much, and you've got the yellow page appendices as well attached to the report. Any comments or questions? Councillor Peck.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've got several points to make, which I'm hoping officers will be able to answer. I think that the special needs policy, as I've said several times in the past, the special needs policy that Nottinghamshire has is significantly better and more balanced than it was, say, 10, 20, 30 years ago. But there are a number of points in this report, particularly in the yellow pages, the appendix, which I want to draw attention to and perhaps get a response to, and they're really around the statistics concerning EHC plans. So in section 2, we're told that 10.5% of pupils in maintained schools in Nottinghamshire have an EHC plan or are in receipt of SEN support services, compared to 13.5% in our statistical neighbours. And I think it's just over 14%, the report says, nationally, the national average. In section 1, it states that this policy builds upon Nottinghamshire's long-standing commitment to inclusion, which enables most children and young children with SEN to receive their education in mainstream settings and access resources without the need for an EHC plan. My question there is, how do we know that those 3%, that 3% gap that I've referred to between the numbers of children in Nottinghamshire with an EHC plan and the statistical neighbours, how do we know that they're receiving that support that's made in that claim. I've always been slightly sceptical about those claims, as I was in the days when Nottinghamshire statemented half the number of children as was the national average. I note, however, that between January 2015 and January 2020, the report says that there's been an 81.7% increase in the number of EHC plans in Nottinghamshire, and that compares to 48.6% with our statistical neighbours. So it's clear from that there's been a considerable closing of the gap, catching up, although it does still leave that 3% gap that I've referred to. So my question there is, do we expect in time that the average number of EHC plans will in time be on a par with our statistical neighbours or the national average, or has that plateaued? I mean, is it going to carry on with that present trajectory? One more point I want to refer to in the statistics is that 1.8% of plans in Nottinghamshire were for under fives, 22.5% for the 5 to 10-year-olds, but 38.1% for 11 to 15-year-olds and 37.5% for 16 to 25-year-olds. Now, the plan states that Nottinghamshire has a higher percentage of young people aged 16 or above with a plan than the national average, but a lower one in the early years and the 5 to 10 year group, the primary age group. So why is that? Because that seems to indicate that, I just couldn't think of a logical reason. It suggests to me that the 3% difference overall that I've referred to means that a disproportionate number of children in our primary and early years ages don't have an EHC plan compared to our statistical neighbours and the national average. I can't quite see, as I say, any logical reason why that should be. And perhaps our officers can give some clarity, please. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Peck. Any other questions before I ask officers to pick that up? No. Is it you, Marion, that's going to pick this up? It's your report. Yes, go on then.
Yes, I think with Lawrence as well, who probably can make more comment about the actual percentage of increases. Can I take a couple of the points, I think, if I've understood correctly? These papers outline and articulate, as you've said, Councillor Peck, I think, a much more balanced approach to SEND, which has been worked on over 2.5 years since our SEND review and has been developed with the parents and carers, schools and stakeholders. So I think the first thing to say is it's not a document that has just been created at County Hall or by officers. It's taken a long time to get to that SEND policy, and it, as a result, it's taken a long time to get to the outcomes. Now, if I just draw your attention as well to something that was published in the professional journals in July, I'm just trying to get it up, whereby Nottinghamshire was identified in September 2020 is amongst the top 10 best performing councils in the country with regard to outcomes for children with special educational needs. And this was the reason why, is because we provide high outcomes within the budget and maximise use of the resources. And they were highlighting that the majority of our earlier special needs support is used in the settings rather than through education, health and care plans. Another strength was seen nationally as the majority of children with SEND being supported and educated in mainstream settings well. Remember the high outcomes. And one of these outcome measures is obviously we have a lower rate of fixed term exclusions and permanent exclusions for children with SEND. And all of this speaks to the policy and the approach we have. And interestingly, they said, Nottinghamshire stands out for its high aspirations for children in AP, with a higher proportion going into employment, apprenticeships or higher education than is the case necessarily. So one of the answers to your question, how do we know? We know because the data and some external scrutiny tells us. Secondly, SEND, I mean, if I could just put the COVID to a side, but the new framework prior to the COVID pandemic had a sharp focus on SEND, and we were beginning to see some of the strengths that we speak about being made clearer. Now, obviously, the COVID Ofsted isn't a source of that information just now. The other reason we're confident is because very significant amounts of money through the high level needs funding and additional funding and partnership funding and family funding, which is different to other local authorities, goes directly to schools. It's not managed from the centre. What we have in Nottinghamshire is an infrastructure to ensure that the decisions about 10, 15 million pounds of the high needs block is taken by head teachers, family SENCOs and SENCOs. And that's another strength of the current system. Now, I'm probably better placed to speak to that side of it. And I'm not sure with regard to the increase in EHC plans, I'm not sure that Lawrence may prefer to say something about that. But with regard to the outcomes and the education, I think what the policy and now the action plan does is it actually articulates and in writing what the strengths are and how we're going to build on that going forward. If we want our young people with SEND, if our ambition and aspiration is for them to live independently, wherever possible to have employment and to have fulfilling relationships in their community, then supporting independence from the earliest opportunity is absolutely critical. And that is a real, and I don't want to minimise, this is a really challenging area, both for parents, for mainstream schools, and for the specialist sector. But I think what the policy and the plan does is articulates us on that road that, as you say, has been evolving and certainly has been changing in recent times. But we are heartened by the outcomes that we are seeing. Lawrence, I don't know whether you want to make any specific reference to the 16 to 24-year-olds or I might be able to say something about the 16 to 24-year-olds, but it might be better to say something about the increase in EHCs.
Yes, I'm happy to. In terms of the increase in education, health and care plans, statements were by and large a professional decision in terms of the implementation of those, whereas education, health and care plans are very much the power lies with the parent, and that's been a key plank of the reforms since 2014. So we have seen numbers going up. We expect them to continue going up. I think our hope would be that we manage to give enough confidence to parents over the coming years that we won't reach a situation where we are at or above the national average, because we would rather deliver what young people need without necessarily having the bureaucracy of a plan. Although we do understand why parents like the confidence of having something written into a plan so they can be sure that it will be delivered. The increasing numbers in secondary and post 16 are largely as a result of parental confidence dropping at the points of transition between primary and secondary, and then into kind of further education and adulthood. So that's one of the key planks actually of this approach, is that we're going to increase that level of confidence with parents, so that they don't feel that they do need plans, and they're happy that we can deliver without necessarily them needing plans. And there's a lot to do. I mean, in terms of preparation for adulthood and making sure that post 16 plans are clear, that parents from the start of children's journey through the education system have a clear understanding of what they would like to see as realistic outcomes, and that those maximise the kind of independence of young people rather than keeping them embedded in semi-institutionalised settings, I think is really important. So these are all the aspirations of the plan and the things that we're trying to do actually to make the outcomes for this group of children, young people and young adults much better.
Thank you for that. Marion, did you want to say anything else? Your hand went up and then it went down again. Marion?
Lawrence actually picked up the point about the 16 to 25-year-old. There's quite a sharp focus, you know, in amongst the plan of working with this particular age group, with our mainstream colleges in particular, around preparation for adulthood and employment, which we hope in time will reduce actually the need to have such plans, which as Lauren said, parents very much welcome at critical times, but we want our young people to be moving into work wherever possible, and for many more than is the case just now.
Quite right. Thank you very much for that. I don't think there's anything further that needs to be said. I think the questions have all been dealt with. So with that, can I move to the vote, please? All those in favour of the recommendation, please show. Thank you. That is carried. Thank you very much. Can we move on to item number 10, which is children missing education, the 6-monthly update. Again, you have the report circulated, and on page 119 there are 2 recommendations which I will move. Do I have a seconder for that, please?
Sorry, I was seconding, but I was mute.
Thank you. That has been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Councillor Plant.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Only to say, really, obviously, as the report says, this is a partial report simply because of COVID and children being, many children being missing from school, really, and obviously continue to do so. And really just concerns on that issue in general, and the fact that you know, children who perhaps weren't full of joy anyway to attend school, and what the actual impacts of that will be going forward, well, obviously worrying. So really, until we have the next report, it's very hard to comment. But even on the information that we were given, the numbers seem to be going up rather than going in the opposite direction. So we'll have to wait for the next report. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any officer that wants to comment? I don't know that there's much else to be said. No. I can't disagree with you on that, Councillor Plant. Obviously, we're in very difficult circumstances, and none of us are as where we would like to be. And it's going to take some time to recover. And I'm not talking about a few weeks or months. Once this pandemic is under control, which hopefully it will be in the not too distant future, then clearly this is an aspect that's got to be very, very closely monitored. And I think we have a strong track record as an authority in doing that, and we will continue to do so. Can I have the show of hands then? All in favour of the recommendations? Thank you very much. That is carried. If we can move on then to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee changes to the holiday pattern, which again is set out as a report, and there is one recommendation on page 126 which I move. You're muted, unmute yourself, please.
Again, I second, Chairman.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Happy that I go straight to the vote. Okay, fine, thank you. All those in favour? That is carried. Thank you very much. Item number 12, which is the troubled families update and changes to the family service staffing establishment. We have 2 recommendations which are set out on pages 135 and 136, which I move.
I second those, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Councillor Plant.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes, again, I'm pleased that the programme has been extended for another year, but that's sort of 2 years where it's been extended just for another year, and really that's not very helpful to local authorities in terms of long-term planning. Knowing what income they're getting and for how long is crucial. So it is what it is for this year. I just wondered that in the next report, obviously the programme must produce an awful lot of data. That could we have in the next report further information on the actual outcomes for families involved in the programme in terms of the issues that the programme addressed with those families, and some information in terms of how long the changes are sustained, and that's obviously quite a difficult one going forward, I appreciate, but sort of some indication in terms of long-term change. And just a question in terms of what is the average caseload for key workers who are actually working with families on this programme? Thank you.
Any other questions? As far as the more detailed information, we have had that in the past, and we will get it at the next report. Again, we are in difficult times. I don't know whether any officer is able to answer that very last question about the number of cases allocated to workers. And
I can have a go at that, Councillor Owen, if that's
yes,
helpful.
thank you, Steve.
So all of the services contribute to the Trouble Families programme. So that social workers, early help workers, colleagues from across the whole of the partnership, really. So it's difficult to give an average caseload. If it was a social worker, it would be between about 18 and 23 cases, slightly more for some of the family centre workers. Children's centres colleagues sometimes contribute to making the difference to the lives of the family. But it's very difficult because you're talking about a whole range of services that contribute to the Trouble Families programme.
Good. Thank you for that. And yes, we will, as I say, we will have more detailed figures. One thing I can tell you is that the programme is performing well this year, and we're on track to make 100% of our claims for successful outcomes targets. But it is important that we do keep this under review, because one of the critical criteria, I think, for success was employment. And that needs to be sustained. You're quite right, Councillor Plant. That needs to be sustained. It's not just a case of going into a job for a few weeks and us claiming success. That does need to be sustained over a significant period of time. But of course, with the pandemic, that will have had an adverse impact. And one of the other issues was school attendance, which again, of course, we are going to be is going to be impacted. So it's going to be difficult, I think, but nevertheless, we'll put together what there is. So, okay, with those few comments and responses, can I have a show of hands? All those in favour of the recommendations? Okay, that is carried. Thank you very much. Item number 13 is digital resource to deliver DFE funded children's projects. And again, you have the report with one recommendation on page 143, which I'm happy to move.
And I second, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? No, in which case, can we move to the vote, please? All those in favour? That is carried. Thank you. Moving to item number 14, the National Children and Adult Services Conference, November 2020. You have one recommendation on page 5.1, which I move.
And I second, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Councillor Plant.
I might say just actually to thank officers for the report. I found it really interesting. Nearly as good as being there, or actually probably better. But it is obviously interesting in terms of the issues that are being flagged up and that are being addressed. So just to say thank you. It's a good read.
Well, I think in part you've got Councillor Taylor to thank for that, because she contributed quite a bit. So she's not blowing her own trumpet. I did tell her to, but like me, she's very modest. So unless Councillor Taylor, you want to make any comment, do you?
Well, I'll take the thanks, Councillor Plant. They don't come very often from some of those closest to me, but I'll take them on this occasion.
That was very cutting, I have to say. I'm sure she wasn't referring to me. But anyway, with those few comments,
just to make the point, Philip, if I may.
Yes, of course.
The care review, which is referenced in paragraph 3, which is a running thread because we've been waiting for this for so long. I'm given to understand that did commence last week. We've got a new Children's Commissioner coming into post in March, so the work is starting separately to that, but the care review has now begun, so we can only keep plugging away with the messages we've been passing up to government about what we would like to see as changes, and hope that some of them are incorporated into this review now.
Thank you, Colin. You've indicated.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And it was just to build on the point that Councillor Taylor has made. An independent chair has now been appointed for the review of children's social care, including care, the element of care, which is Josh McAllister. Josh is currently the Chief Executive Officer for Frontline Social Work, and he'll be resigning from that post and taking up his role as the independent chair from the beginning of March.
Thank you for that update. So the report has been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Good, thank you very much. That is carried. The next item is consultation on the opening of a specialist satellite school provision on King Edward Primary School site. Again, you have a report on this, and we have recommendation set out on page 155 and 156, two recommendations, which I move.
And I'll second, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Peck.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I found this report quite interesting. I think this is quite a creative way of using some additional space that exists at the King Edward Primary School site to create an opportunity for a number of special needs children. And I was also interested in the fact that they're managed by Carlton Digby Special School rather than the school itself, and that seems in the circumstances an appropriate way to go forward, because they've got the specialist knowledge and expertise, of course. I think added on to the discussion we had a meeting or two ago, where it was revealed that there might be a possibility of the Aram school being used for a particular cohort of special needs children. I think this is something that we certainly would strongly support, because it's a creative way, if that one comes to pass as well, a creative way of creating more special needs places. And I think we've all acknowledged that there is a significant need for that in Nottinghamshire. And perhaps it might be an opportunity to look around to see in other parts of the county where there might be similar opportunities in the future, in addition to building the one special school that's been talked about. And in my view, I've said several times that I think we're probably needing two special schools, but that's in the future. But certainly we support this report, and it's a good way forward, I think.
Thank you. If there are no further comments, can we put it to the vote, please? All those in favour? That is carried. Thank you very much. And the last item on the agenda is the work programme, and I move the recommendation set out on page 162.
Which I second, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Plant.
Thank you, Chair. Not the last meeting, but the meeting before that, Councillor Owen, I brought up or asked for, could we have a report on child and family poverty in Nottinghamshire? And you did agree to it then. I'm just wondering when it might be fitted in. Thank you.
Irene, you've put your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have started the work on the child poverty report, looking in particular at an angle around COVID and how that's impacted on households in Nottinghamshire. It's become quite a big piece of work, if I'm honest with you, because we want to consult with families. So we're now currently planning timescales for those for that consultation exercise, bearing in mind there are a couple of consultation exercises at the moment for families. So we want to wait for those to be over before we do it. But we're certainly gathering, looking at national research and also local feedback so that we can come back to you with a report. It's likely it will be April now, which is quite delayed, but we think it's really important to get the views of our local families before we prepare a report for you.
Okay. But it is obviously a moving feast. We can't, as has already been pointed out, control COVID. Things may slip, things may change, and I'm afraid you'll just have to bear with us. But we have agreed to do that, and it will appear as soon as is possible. But we want a full and comprehensive report. I don't want to be accused of not providing all the information. Okay, with that, can I have a show of hands on the recommendation to accept the work programme? Thank you very much. That is carried. And thank you very much for your attendance, and apologies once again for slipping out of the meeting unintentionally, but I think we got through pretty well in the end. Thank you for your forbearance with that. Okay, see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, committee.
This winter, more than ever, with COVID-19 still circulating, we need help to reduce all avoidable risks. You can help protect the NHS, social care and loved ones by getting the flu vaccine. You may be eligible for the free vaccine at your GP or local pharmacy if you are over 65, pregnant or have a long-term condition. Find out if you are eligible at nhs.uk/stay well. Children up to year 7 can get the free nasal spray at school or through their GP if they are below school age. If you are not eligible for the free vaccine, you can pay for it at your local pharmacy. The flu vaccination does not give you flu. It reduces the risk of catching flu as well as spreading it to others. If you had the vaccination in the past, that will not protect you as the flu strain changes every year, so you need to have a new one this year. It is also important to wash your hands often with warm water and soap. Use tissues when you cough or sneeze, and bin used tissues as quickly as possible. Thank you for helping to protect yourself and loved ones this winter.